So hey, don't look now, but this month, May 2021, 4 Songs becomes 1 year old. And to anyone who's appeared on this show, anyone who's listened, and anyone who's helped along the way, thank you, thank you, thank you. And a big special hats off to Tony from the Pug for his support, and of course my beautiful wife Kathy for her patience and encouragement. And with that, on with the show. So I've talked a lot about the bands that influenced me over my life, and of course the big ones are The Clash and Ian Hunter / Mott the Hoople. Those bands are almost mystical to me. Maybe it was because they came from England, or because they struck such powerful images. But for me, The Clash, Mott the Hoople, Ian Hunter, even bands like the Sex Pistols, Big Hearty Dynamite, etc., 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 they were larger than life. They were almost mythical, and no one, and I mean nobody where I grew up, was listening to them when I was. They were mine. But here's the thing. Of all the wonderful, evocative things these bands were to me, and where they led me, the one thing they weren't was relatable. I mean, I'm not a punk rocker. I love the music, but I didn't really understand the message until years later. In fact, it wasn't until I came across a loud, catchy, feedback-drenched song called Somebody to Shove on MTV when I was a junior in high school that I really found the first band I could truly, honestly relate to. And that band was Soul Asylum. There was something about the energy, the raw frustration, the crashing, crunching guitars of that song that just hit me. The energy felt like The Clash, but the look and the feel was totally different. The guys in The Clash wore military fatigues or leather bondage gear. Ian Hunter and his Mott the Hoople bandmates wore high heels, shades, and other glam rock trappings. The guys in Soul Asylum, they wore torn-up t-shirts and jeans. I wore torn-up t-shirts. The hair was a mess. My hair was a mess. And it seemed to me the last thing on their mind was being popular or looking cool. And for a 16-year-old who wasn't exactly popular or cool, I could see myself as these guys. There's no mysticism about lead singer Dave Pirner or lead guitarist Danny Murphy. They seemed normal, real. They didn't seem all that different from me, except that they were on stage and I was an adoring fan. While Dave Pirner wrote the majority of the band's songs, it was guitarist Danny Murphy who was the unsung hero, almost like Mick Jones to Dave Pirner's Joe Strummer. Dan wrote most of my favorite Soul Asylum songs, and he had this cool, casual swagger about how he handled his Les Paul guitar. His songs and solos were tasteful, which I know doesn't sound like a great cowpunk descriptor, but it makes sense. There's a workmanlike quality to his playing, not flashy, not thrilling, but always on point. And another thing about Soul Asylum, they were my gateway musical drug. I came across them at the time when my own tastes were growing. For you see, in addition to carrying on the great Minneapolis punk traditions of bands like The Replacements and Husker Du, Soul Asylum was also an early pioneer of so-called alt-country. And most importantly, they led me to the holy grail of my college years, Golden Smog. Golden Smog was the traveling Wilburys of my generation, because in addition to Danny Murphy from Soul Asylum, the group also included Gary Louris and Mark Perlman of the Jayhawks, Craig Johnson from Run Rusty Run, and that's right, Jeff Tweedy from Wilco, before Wilco became the next great American band. Golden Smog recorded 1 EP and 4 full-lengths, with material rivaling anything released by their own original bands. For the guys in the group, Golden Smog was a release, a creative, emotional outlet amongst friends that never became too serious. For me, Golden Smog was the most important band of my college years. Their first LP, Down by the Old Mainstream, came out when I was 20, and it quickly became my treasure map. Not only did the songs speak to me, but it led me to bands like Wilco, Uncle Tupelo, Sunvolt, the Honey Dogs, and of course, on and on and on, the greater alt-country universe. This is the album that defined my first few years as a legitimate adult. And as usual, it was Danny Murphy's songs that meant the most. He left Soul Asylum in 2012, appearing every now and again for a Golden Smog reunion show. He's been running a virtual pinup art gallery called Grapefruit Moon full-time since leaving the band. Out of the blue, I saw him on Twitter and sent him an email via his art gallery. We started emailing about the possibility of him appearing on the show. And it turns out that not only would he do it, he's been writing new material for an album coming out next year. So in addition to discussing 2 of my favorite songs from Down by the Old Mainstream, Ill-Fated and Red-Headed Stepchild, we also chat about 2 brand spanking new songs, Fresh New Hell and Rosary. I'm your host, Rob Thormeyer, and it is my high honor to welcome Dan Murphy to 4 Songs.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks for tracking me down at my gallery and making the appropriate emails. I appreciate the opportunity as well.
Oh, no problem. So first things first is everyone gets the same questions. I started this back in May when this pandemic was just starting. Well, people were just kind of realizing that we were in trouble. But how have you been?
I have been really, I didn't realize I was such a social person. It's been really hard for me.
Well, how's it affected? Because I know you've been doing some writing lately.
Yeah, it was good for writing, but I don't see myself as a particularly social person, but just night after night after night, just like, well, what am I going to do tonight? Like sit on my couch or lie in my bed or go down to, your options are so minimal, I guess. And I felt like the second round, I feel like that's been really hard because everybody's just kind of beat up from it, and it was kind of starting to show a little bit of light. And, Minneapolis had that whole, it's been just the brutal summer here.
Yeah. George
Floyd and all that. I mean, there's whole sections of the city that are just burnt down, and there's still whole sections that are boarded up, So, I think Minneapolis has been, the disease hasn't been as bad as other cities, but it's been kind of the epicenter of the unrest in some ways, and that's something I really think about a lot.
Well, I know you got your Grapefruit Gallery business too, or Grapefruit Moon Gallery rather. How has that been affected? I'm sure it has. But.
I got to be honest. I'm not gloating or anything, but it's completely an internet experience for people.
Okay.
We do have a gallery you can go into, but we don't serve coffee and donuts, so it completely exists online. And we have a pretty captive audience of people that are really bored and enjoy us. So our business has been okay. We were able to kind of stagger shifts for a while and keep all of our 5 employees employed. And we were very fortunate because our template or whatever is survivable in this, which was a lucky break.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so this podcast, I started it, as I mentioned, back in May, and the main focus is on songs and songwriting. And on this episode, we're talking about 2 songs. One of my favorite albums, and certainly the album of my college experience, was Golden Smog's Down by the Old Mainstream, which I can't believe just turned 25.
Rob, you're killing me.
But we've also got 2 new songs that you're working on, too. We'll talk about at the end of the episode, called Fresh New Hell and Rosary. But just to get us started, you've been in the business for a long time, and you took a bit of a break. But when did you, and I got to tell you, your music is one of the reasons I got into, trying to write songs. I never could, but I wanted to.
That's very kind. It's like, I don't know, my experience with writing music, with a family and kids and a wife and a business, it's really, really tough. I think you have to be kind of narcissistic and a loner and really pursue it because, you can't have, diapers in one room and a brooding minor key song in the other one, So, that was a problem for me. I had other interests, and, I was in my main band, for 31 years, which is just staggering to me, and I kind of felt like it was really fun and really tough, and then it was really fun and not so tough, and then it was really fun and it wasn't tough at all because we were successful for a couple of years, and then just kind of went down the gradient the other way, and it just got to be, not very fun and really tough at the end. Whoever, we used to kind of be, Kid Rock's a bad analogy, but whoever would headline the music festival in Austin, Texas, or Dallas. And then at the end, it was like we were 4 bands back from that. I was like, well, this is no fun, And I kind of feel, I think I'm becoming more proud of our body of work. Some of it I love, and some of it I think is great. And I was just so involved with it. Really, I did that at the expense of everything else in my life. I think I made 20 records in both bands, which is, and every time you do it, you hear, oh, this is going to be the one, this is the best one ever. So, there's a lot of kind of backslapping and disappointment, and then there's a few really illuminating happy moments as well.
So going even before that, when did you first start thinking, this is what I'm going to do? I'm good enough to get to, I can write these songs, I can play in the band, but at what point were you we're going for it?
Well, with the band, when I was, my mother got remarried when I was in 7th grade, so I guess that makes me 12? No, I was in 6th grade, so I was 11, and I had a stepbrother, and I only had 2 sisters, but I had an older stepbrother. This is the early 70s. And he was, patchouli oil, he had really long hair, and army fatigues, and he played guitar, so my mother figured, a good way to get Doug Sprinthal, my new stepbrother, and me, I was 4 years younger than him, to bond was to give me guitar lessons. So I probably had 5 formal lessons from him before he fired me. I just took it really serious. I mean, literally, like, playing guitar was my life in high school. I was like one of those kids that was kind of shy, and I learned every Aerosmith record and Thin Lizzy. I mean, I would just sit there, and I got pretty good, and that was like my comfort zone, and it's all I ever really wanted to do. So when it started to happen, it kind of felt natural.
And when did you start writing your own songs? Because I think that's sort of what separates people like me who like to play.
In high school band in high school called At Last. We played a talent show, and there was 4 bands, and we finished 4th, and I pretty much quit because I was like, you guys are holding me back. I was just, bratty little 15-year-old. But I started writing songs in that band. I think I wrote one called Abrupt and Abrasive, one called First Day of School. I mean, they weren't even that bad, Maybe I peaked early. And then in Soul Asylum, it was called Outcast Rules, and Carl and I lived together, and we wrote a song called Planet Zero, which is the first song that we ever wrote as a band together. And it never got recorded, but it's kind of a cool kind of punk rock song. And that was probably 1982. I was 20 years old.
Wow.
Carl was 18. Because Carl had gone to London. He went there in high school, and he came back like in bondage trousers, leather jacket with a dagger in his ear. I was like, what the fuck happened to you? And it was so he was kind of our radar sort of for bullshit and vibe and everything. So I think when Carl ceased to be, it was really hard for the band to kind of find their equilibrium.
So who are you listening to now that you said?
I've been working on this record so long. I try not to listen to a lot of stuff. I don't want to something infectious to get in my ear, and then all of a sudden it's on my record, But I like Tom Waits. I like The Clash. I like Buzzcocks. I mean, I don't know. I mean, new stuff. I mean, I like the Whole Steady. I think they're really cool. It's not really so new. Death Cab for Cutie. I think some of those records are really, really great melodies,
Mm-hmm. Well, was there something about The Clash was the first band I fell in love with. I was probably 11 or 12, and I don't know how I discovered them. It was the fluky thing. But
yeah, I mean, it changed my life, too. I saw them in 1977. And it was The Clash headline, David Johansen played in the middle, and the Undertones opened. And they it just blew me away. I was like, the first song, Joe Strummer kicks his Music Man amp off the drum riser. And I'm so bored with the U.S. I was just like, what the fuck is this? I mean, it was literally, that was the template for anything I've ever done musically.
Wow. Yeah, because the Les Paul, was that a Mick Jones thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, for me, it's just I don't know. I mean, Mick Jones could play. I mean, not super great singers, not the most, but it's just felt like it was so earnest to me. That's something that was lost in music in the 1970s.
Well, I kind of felt like, in a way, between the interplay with you and Dave Turner was sort of like that, because Dave played the Telly, you had the Les Paul.
Yeah, definitely. It was not an accident that guitars that we used and stuff,
Yeah.
I tell you what, years later, I was playing in New York with Soul Asylum, and we did 2 nights at the Beacon Theater with Keith Richards, and Joe Strummer came to both shows and hung out with him. I tried hell to get him up to play with us. We'll do Brand New Cadillac, And he was like, Nate, my time's come and gone, But he has some very funny stories about being in a band with Mick Jones. He said it was like being in a band with Elizabeth Taylor, with his entourage and shit.
I always felt like Mick was one of the most underrated songwriters. If you think about
Stay Free, that's just as good as it gets, right?
Yeah. And
I think that's probably the best punk song ever written, in terms of lyric and sentiment, and just the way it just tears off the vinyl too. It's just amazing sounding.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about that. But in addition to Soul Asylum, you were a founding member of Golden Smog, which late '80s. You guys had recorded a number of albums throughout the mid 2000s. And
we kind of started as a cover band. I think Dave Perner and Gary Louris and myself opened for a Jayhawk show in Superior, Wisconsin. We were called I don't know. I think we were called Baldy Pills, Hash and Guns, or something like that. It was some kind of making fun of something, and we didn't take it very seriously. And it went surprisingly well. And then we do kind of shows at acoustic bars around, and then Craig got involved. And Craig's like, well, if we want to be a real band, we got to start writing some songs. Come on, guys, we don't want to do all these covers. Craig Johnson, who was in Run Westy Run, and so. And then Tweety had the same publishing company I had, Warner Chappell, and they were trying to figure out get people to write together. He came to town for a few days and stayed at my house, and we wrote a couple of songs that turned up on Weird. I think it was on Weird Tales.
Okay.
you know, it's just he was excited to be in the band. He like Uncle Tupelo had just broken up, and after he'd been in town for a while, we did like an unannounced show at the Uptown Bar with Jeff, Gary, Craig, Perlman, myself, and it really went well. And we're like, we should start a band, you know?
Yeah, because I was kind of wondering, like, how did it go from just being a bunch of buddies playing cover tunes to like making it a serious effort? Because I mean, Down by the Mainstream.
Craig was like, he's like the one. He's like, fuck, you know, what are we? He's like, write some songs, dude. And he kind of pushed us. We would write together a lot. I have some great pictures from down by the old Mainstream at Pachyderm. Everybody kind of huddled around at tables, like finishing lyrics to songs. And I think we did that record in like 6 days. I mean,
wow.
It really came together really cohesively. And my friend Brian Paulson, who produced a lot of Uncle Tupelo records, produced it. I think it sounds great. You know, it was fun and spontaneous and kind of turned into a band like right at that moment.
Yeah, so I was kind of curious how you were able to keep it fun, but I mean, we didn't
tour very much. I mean, I think if we toured, we would have broken up immediately. I mean, there was pretty strong personalities in that band, but it was funny. But we only really toured, I don't know, like in that whole time period, maybe 6 or 7 weeks total. You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I saw you twice at the 930 Club.
Yeah, and it was always kind of fun. I thought it was a good show because I'd always kind of wanted to be in a band that was really ensemble styled, where everybody stepped up for a part of the show, and I got to play piano on a couple things, and it was like, for me, it was really rewarding to not have to just go 1, 2, 3, 4 and just kind of just shrug, you know. It's.
I mean, for me, this album, I think it came out, I think I was 20, so it was like right when I was beginning to develop my own taste, and it's led me to so many different places, because I mean, you guys came from different bands, but each band had, you know, I feel like each person brought something new that.
Yeah, and some of it was written in advance, and some of it was written in the studio. I know Gary had that song I'd heard with the Jayhawks called "Won't Be Coming Home," and I love that song. I was like, "Fuck, you're gonna give us that song?" Craig had written a couple really nice songs, and yeah, it just kind of really, we were at this gorgeous studio in rural Minnesota called Pachyderm, and it was like Ponderosa, but you just sit there. There's no distractions, and we really did it quickly. I mean, I swear to God, it wasn't more than 6 or 7 days to write, record, mix that record. So we worked long days, and we kind of work in packs. Like someone would be, let's finish this one. You know, Gary and Jeff would come in and do something, and then you'd be out sitting in the next room, like kind of finish your lyrics for the next thing to boot up, you know?
So I was wondering this, because you all are coming at different stages, you know, parts of your career, but it must have been hard to get together.
It was, and it was also, I had just signed to Columbia, which was a great thing for my band, and Donnie Einer had signed us, and it was a great thing for my band, and he was super, like, confused. I was like, where the fuck do you want to do this? You know, are you saving your good songs for this other band? And he didn't want us to use our names, and it was like, but yeah, I mean, they were quite intimidated by it. The possibility of it being something that they were going to miss out on, it didn't feel stupid, you know?
I guess that's the industry.
Yeah, welcome to show business, kid, right?
Yeah, right. Well, so we're going to talk about 2 songs from Down by the Old Mainstream, Ill-Fated and Red-Headed Stepchild. So first one is Ill-Fated. This was the second song from the album. So this one, did you come in with this one, or did you?
No, I had like a thing, kind of an idea, and I kind of really rewrote the lyrics a lot. There's a lot of words for me in that song, but God, it was kind of, I think I was just about ended in my first marriage, and it was kind of about that, and not very kind or friendly song, but it seemed really real at the time. I really worked on those lyrics, but it was like kind of at a place I'd left the house I was living at, like with my family, and I was living in a motel downtown, and then like the Smog tour, that record had just come out. We were going to go on tour for 2 weeks. I mean, it kind of felt like for me where I was that 2 months, it was like salvation to like be out with your friends. It was just like so healing, you know. I was kind of, I don't know, I was thinking about the implications of, you know, what a divorce means and, you know, and starting over with all that. But it was just, yeah, it was like the kind of, that song is sort of desperation like that. And I really thought of that band as like, I mean, they're all like my best friends, and it was really just such a great exercise, and just like, it's kind of healing to play music with your friends.
Yeah, I think, you know, from the listener's perspective, and I was, like I said, I think I was 20, so I probably didn't understand everything that was going on.
Well, it's nice when you get Gary Lewis or Jeff Tweedy to sing harmonies on your song. I mean, you can't really ask for a better deal than that, right?
Yeah, because I mean, Gary can sing harmony with anybody, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, I was so surprised the first time I heard him in the studio. We were doing, like, we did an EP of covers. I think we sang, like, Easy to Be Hard, which is a Laura Nero song. And I was like, dude, I can't believe him. His voice is just so angelic in the studio. I mean, it just puts chills through you when you're sitting in the control room.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other lines I like are toward the end, but I've been dying to start living and just living to be dying.
Yeah. I really worked hard on those lyrics. I didn't want to have like dummy lyrics. And yeah, I mean, there's a bit about, I think I was 26 maybe, and I dated this woman, and she had a pretty strong intention of getting married by the time she was 30, and I think I was maybe 28 and she was 29. And I kind of asked her to marry me somewhat reluctantly, and my life was about to change because that other record was going to come out, and, you know, and it was like we didn't have a chance, but it was really, I don't know, it just seemed like one of those things where, in hindsight, I probably should have known that it wasn't, the timing wasn't right for me, but a lot of Ill-Fated is like as honest as I could be about how it felt, at least for me. I mean, there's no perspective of how she saw me in that song, but it's like how I dealt with it, you know? But it was very personal. It was very like an account of, I mean, I would just sit up at night and I would just have little notebooks, and I just, you know, I probably had 10 times as many lyrics that I paired on to that.
So I guess, because I know some songs, maybe this will come up in other songs, but, you know, when I've talked to other writers, they say, you know, some songs just they come all at once, and some songs you're with them for weeks, days, years.
Yeah, and I always write the music first. And then I try to write words, and typically I'll just come up with like kind of dummy words that you can kind of sing along and have the right amount of syllables or phrases or whatever, so you can get an idea of where the melody's going to go. And then I constantly, with having, you know, cell phones and shit, I just sit up and like if something comes to my head at 5 a.m, I'll just like make a little sound file on my phone, and then the next morning I'll wake up and I got 20 things like ideas for songs. And some of them are halfway decent. So I tend to really rewrite lyrics a lot, not so much parts. And it's funny because Dave Perner and that band really didn't do it much. Like he had a song, he would rarely change anything, which is another way of doing it. It's just completely opposite for me.
So let's move on to Redheaded Stepchild, which is one of the catchiest songs I've ever heard.
I don't even know what that one's about. We said this guitar tech, and he's like, I'm going to beat you. He was from Nashville, you know. I'm going to beat you like a redheaded stepchild. I don't even know what that means. It's some southern thing. But I had that kind of line, and I think it kind of was messing around with Perlman, and we were like trying to write some words. That one is just more like words that were fun to sing without having any personal meaning, and the chorus I don't get at all. I just like I don't even know where that came from. It's like so not Dan Murphy or whatever. But I liked the little opening riff, and it was kind of catchy and hooky. And again, I got like Jeff Tweedy to sing harmonies on it, and Craig did a guitar solo with a lighter. There's a slide, and that sounds kind of crazy. And it was just kind of very off the cuff. We needed a rock song, and then everybody said, well, Dan, you do rock songs. You got any? And I was kind of spent some time, and I came up with that.
Yeah, because to me, this was, I think, the song I think I identified the most with. Because, again, it seems
I like V. I mean, to me, that, like, you know, she had a ring in the side of her nose. That was so far ahead of its time, you know?
Yeah.
Wearing other people's clothes. And the funny thing is V exists. Like, Craig Johnson's living with her right now.
Really?
There are a couple, Victoria Norvell.
Oh.
So, yeah, that to me was really a touching song because I knew her well, and it's just like, that's a very pro-relationship, pro-woman song, you know? I just think it's lovely.
Yeah. I mean, that I think that was like the first single. Was that
yeah. Single? I think it was, yeah. I don't even know if we got around to a second single on that record. It was, you know, kind of short. I mean, right with this, you know, I kind of thought, in hindsight, that those records could have had some wings if they were like maybe, I don't know. I mean, I think that Until You Came Along is like one of the funnest songs I've ever played on, but I think that was kind of long. Maybe it was like 5 minutes or 5.5 minutes. But to me, we condensed that a little bit and had a team try to market that or something. It could have been like a subtle radio song. It's just so catchy and infectious.
Yeah, I thought this song, Redheaded Stepchild, could have been a single.
Yeah, it's got like kind of, but you know, this little warbling Danny Murphy always is a little bit sharp and flat. I don't really have like the Bon Jovi voice, and I'm okay with that after all these years, you know.
Yeah, I mean, just because I was thinking about this song, I don't know what it was about it. I think just because I was a naive little 20-year-old and thinking I don't know where I belong, and then the line like,
kind of that kind of thing. But literally, it was just like I was trying to come up with words that would be fun to sing live, like that wouldn't embarrass me. That was like my head. It's like, oh, you want a rock song? I can do that.
So when you're playing in a band with so many, and with both the Soul Asylum and obviously with Golden Smog, with so many different writers, how does that affect you as a writer?
Well, I was happy about the Golden Smog because I felt like there was hard for me to get my songs taken seriously in Soul Asylum at some point because it wasn't really Dave himself. Like, I don't want to do dance songs, but it was like Columbia kind of saw Dave as the front man and, you know, like visually and everything. So they had kind of an idea of how it would go. So I was very thankful for the Golden Smog. I just, like, after a while, I just started, like, saving my songs for the Golden Smog. I was like, fuck, I'll just record it with these guys, you know?
And so before we leave the Smog, you mentioned that you did a reunion show a couple of years ago. Not that long ago.
Yeah, it was on my birthday. It was pretty fun.
So
I haven't played in a while, but I dusted off the cobwebs, and I don't know, there's like 250 tickets in this really kind of posh basement room. We brought in a big PA, and it was like there was a lot of love in that room. It was actually very, very fun. So we decided to do a show at First Avenue, and that got canceled because of COVID, obviously. And that show will be rescheduled sometimes when First Avenue opens again. So I don't know. It's like that band has a little bit of a history in this town, and there's, you know, a few hundred really, really loyal fans that will just flip out to see us again. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, I mean, because you think about the Minneapolis scene, you know, because, you know, back in the 80s with the Replacements and everybody else.
Smog we played, like, we headlined the Basilica Block Party. You know, we played in front of 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 people pretty regularly when we play here, or Chicago. So there was fans for that band. You know, there's a lot of people that, kind of like you were saying, Rob, there's kind of like something that resonated with them at a certain point in their life, and it was like kind of their go-to record for a few months. You know, I hear that a lot.
Oh, it was for my 4 years of college. I think I came out, I was a sophomore, and between that and being there, because that's what led me, because it was like Desert of Breadcrumb. It was like my yellow brick road. It took me into so many different places.
Sad and powerful. That record holds up really well, you know?
Yeah. So let's move on to your new material. And so you took a break. And
I took a very long break, like 6 or 7 years. And I started playing guitar a little bit. My father was like Irish, and he grew up in a Catholic orphanage. And he passed away about 2.5 years ago. He was like 86 or 7. But his dying wish was to play Danny Boy at his funeral.
Oh.
And that's a fucking tough song. So I said, I got to start practicing again. So I sat in with like a piano player and a vocalist and a violinist. And I probably spent a month, because, I mean, that's, for me, I hadn't played in so long. And the first 2 weeks were brutal. And then the third week I was it's getting a little better. And then, you know, I did that, and I started continually play. I think that was like in October of a couple of years ago, and then in January I started recording this, like working on this record. So I am getting pretty fluent on guitar again, but I hadn't played, you know, more than a couple hours a year in maybe 5 or 6 years. So I was really, really out of whack.
What was the hardest part, do you think?
Well, I mean, I could always hear what I wanted to play in my brain, because I made so many records, and I could articulate it, I could hum it, but I couldn't make my fingers do it. So I was like, fuck. I felt like I was disconnected from the ability to be able to do what I used to be able to do, and that I could hear that I needed to do in my head. So that my head and my body and my fingers weren't in concert with each other, which was really frustrating.
So where are you now?
I'm getting better.
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's, you know, people go, it's like riding a bike. It's not like riding a bike. It's completely the opposite. If you don't play, you're going to lose all your function. And, you know, for me, we made I was very much a perfectionist. I'm not saying we got perfection, but that was the goal, to play, you know, in key, sing in key, play, you know. So for me, I was very much like, when I finished a part in Soul Asylum, I go, I'm really happy with that, and then move on. And, you know, 2 months later, it would still sound pretty good. So I was like, the perfectionist in me was really kind of beaten up.
So is this going to be coming out later this year?
Yeah, I believe we got like a little record deal and stuff, and it was going to be the end of this year, but I think with COVID and everything, I think it'll probably be the beginning of next year, because there's no point in, you know, touring or whatever, doing shows or a record release party.
Yeah.
But it's been kind of fun. It was kind of a chance meeting with a guy I know who was a musician that I never really crossed paths with, but he owns a few restaurants in the neighborhood where I live, and we kind of became buddies, and I went to like holiday party at his house. Yeah, the year before COVID, I went up to his studio and I go, dude, this is nice. It's a very humble but lovely, and, you know, just minimal amount of stuff, but it was all. And he played me a couple of things he did, and kind of sounded like, maybe like Harvest, like Neil Young, like that really kind of warm, resonant, low-endy. You know, I was like, wow, it just kind of drew you in. I like his production style was really interesting to me. So his name is Jeff Arundel, and we have been writing and recording a record together.
Okay, so it's the
for
two
about
of you.
14 months, yeah.
Okay.
And we have 9 songs done. We got to do 2 more, and then I think we're going to put it out and see what happens. I have very modest expectations for it, but I'm proud of the material, and it's been really fun. It's been a great pandemic project. You know, it's like, what else do you do?
Right. And it sounds like one of them, Fresh New Hell, appears to be inspired by.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably never have done that now, because it's just. But I kind of started writing that in February. Like, I'd be sitting in my couch up here, and like Rachel Maddow would be on, and like there'd be 3 minutes that would talk about the pandemic and like, what is this going to turn into, you know? So I kind of look at the corner of my eye, and I started writing like this unrequited love song, and I kind of started thinking about like Romeo and Juliet in a pandemic, and that's like the first verse kind of.
Some things about I wrote, some are blue. Who can I turn to? Never knew I'd look so good on you. Should we kill the virus kill us too?
Yeah. And then I was like, I think there's a line like, should we kill the virus or let the virus kill us too, which is like very Romeo and Juliet. And then like in hindsight, like 3 months later, I was like, fuck, I don't even want to put this out. It seems like really heavy-handed sort of, but it's sort of like a timeline to what that felt like, at least to me.
Yeah, because when I heard it, I was trying to think the different directions, because it goes in different directions, I feel like.
I wrote some of the other verses, like, what is it, playing on Adderall. It's like it gets very political, and it gets very much like the response to COVID. But the first verse and the choruses, I kind of thought of like you know, like young lovers trying to deal with this.
Don't start with me, I'm not in the mood. One and the same, in solitude. We just turn our cheek, try and turn the page. So much more to seek.
A friend that has like a 9-year-old daughter, and I was thinking, like, you know, what is that like to take your daughter to like not to school in a mask every day? Like, what is that like? So that the choruses are, you know, are kind of inspired by what it would seem like for a 9-year-old that's trying to be brave and not afraid, and like how it affects them socially and what they're able to understand about it.
Yeah, because I was thinking the same thing when I was listening to it and going over the lyrics. I thought, you know, this is like how do you manage like for a kid trying to make life in this?
Yeah,
time?
I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, we were going to do. She ended up. She sang. Her name is Eloise. She's a friend of mine's daughter, and she sang the choruses like in a really lovely, like 9-year-old girl voice, and we were going to use it on the record, but without like a video presentation. I mean, you couldn't really tell like what it was. You couldn't see what it was, and this was when the pandemic was really bad, so we weren't comfortable having her come to the studio. But yeah, I mean, I had reservations about it, but I think in hindsight, I'm kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like that whole thing in real time, at least how it was to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a moment in time. But then I think you broadened it with the end on Instagram.
Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking on there. That's just weird. It's kind of a good line. I was like, I don't know, it's kind of a throwaway line, but I thought it was kind of funny.
You like my posts on Instagram, follow my stories, you know who I am.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time today, Dan. Got one more song to talk about, and Rosary. And again, this has that catchy hook. I mean, is there a secret for just coming up with those kind of catchy?
I don't know. That guitar line, just like it's so sideways. I was really impressed with it. I kind of put in the little thing. I was trying to kind of do like a Cure-like thing, like a real breezy, I don't know, like Euro thing. And I thought the drummer and the bass player that I've been working with, Ben and Pat, they just killed that time. I'm so happy with the rhythm track. And I don't know. It was kind of a love song, you know. I grew up Catholic, but I don't have any Catholic affiliations at all. But I just like the line, like, hold on tight, because love is like a rosary. Just to me, it was the one that Jeff went work with. They go, that's your line. You got to just say that over and over again. I was like, okay.
Well, because it's such a great metaphor. I mean, I was raised Catholic too, and I just think of my Irish grandmother holding onto her rosary. Like,
yeah, you got to hold on tight. You always see like the clutching, trembling hand, and that's kind of what love could feel like too.
Yeah.
There's another line that's kind of poignant. The studio that we're recording at is it's right past the governor's mansion in St. Paul, and I was driving by one day, and there's all these people like with Confederate flags and pickup trucks, and no masks. We were like all upset about the state law, the mandate to wear masks. And I was driving by, and I kind of came up with that line, the rapture's coming, but it's not. Originally it was the rapture's coming, but it's not for you. Like, what's going to save these people, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of funny. I changed it to me.
Rapture's coming, but it's not for me. Shouldn't take myself so seriously. Down a hole is where it leads. Disappear at times so mysteriously.
But yeah, I mean, it was like kind of just driving in, I just said that line to Jeff. I said, God, all these fucking idiots in front of the governor's mansion. I said that. He goes, yeah, that should be a line in your song. So he kind of like documents the things that I say that he deems as poignant, and we refer back to him, which is nice.
How long did it take you to write the lyrics for this?
That was a lot. It was kind of, maybe a month. And again, there's a whole box of words that didn't get used that I just kind of picked the best ones. But I'm actually really happy with that song. I really like the way it sounds. It's something I haven't heard before.
Yeah, but I like how it ends, too, because it's like a crescendo, and there's kind of a bit of a nursery rhyme.
Oh, yeah. That was like from Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod, I think. I just started picking nursery rhymes when I was like Ollie, Ollie, income free, so I really wanted to kind of delve into that. It teaches you a cool way to count to 7, right?
Yeah.
One's for sorrow, two's for joy, three's for girls, and 4 is for the boys. Five's for silver, 6 for gold, 7's for secrets that are best untold.
So you mentioned that you had a lot of words that you didn't use. How do you edit yourself? I mean, how hard is that?
Well, I was like the light of day, like sometimes you go down this path and, I'm really critical. I didn't want to repeat words a lot. I didn't want to sing the same choruses over because I haven't made that many records where I'm doing the majority of writing. I think that's kind of lazy. So I've been kind of working on that sort of hard. I mean, Jeff, who I'm writing and recording with, we call it like JUCO college freshman lit class. Writing kind of like these words, but I just want to. I always thought when I was writing with Soul Asylum in particular, like, you got to say things that you can say over and over again, and you can sell and believe every night. I mean, if you have a line that it's a cringer for you, you just cringe every fucking night you're up there singing it, So I was trying to eliminate. I mean, that Fresh New Hell. I mean, the first verse, some of those were like, they were just unbelievably bad. So I played it for Jeff, and he was like, I don't think I get this one, And just because the lyrics were all over the place. It was like clap on. It was just craziness, but it turned into something that was more cohesive. But I kind of wanted that one to be like a real stream of consciousness, dirgy. I was thinking like On the Beach, that Neil Young record. That kind of craziness, and I don't know, like word salad. So that's really what I was trying to do, like just try to be spontaneous and out there and not calculated in the final analysis, but just throw a lot of stuff out there and see what stuck.
Well, I mean, I think they're great, and I look forward to hearing the rest.
Yeah,
when it comes out.
I'm excited by it. I mean, I have very humble expectations, but I'm excited, and it was a really good project, and I love the guy I'm working with, and I'm actually really proud of the music. I think the people that I played it for, they're like, wow, it's not totally what you'd expect, I don't think, either, which is always a good thing. And, it was kind of queued up to be fall of this year, and then they're like, we do 5 releases a year, and we're so far behind, it would make more sense in the spring of next year, which is probably true, I just hope it gets out there and people, can hear a song and decide if they like it. I mean, I don't expect it to, chart, but it's just good for me to do something. I felt like I was so disconnected from music. It feels really good to give it a roll again and feel like, remember why it was important to me all those years ago. I mean, that's really what it's about. And
so as you are starting to wrap this album up, where can folks, if they're interested in learning more about you and keeping up with you, are you, I know you're on Twitter, but anywhere else? I know you got gallery.
Instagram too, other Dan Murphy.
Okay.
And I've been playing some music little threads of like mixes and stuff, and people have been reacting to that. God, the last time I made a record was I made a Smog record in Spain, and it was a whole different universe then, and how you drop a record. It was on Lost Highway, so I have to get current and figure out how to do it. And I mean, for me, I'd rather just give the music away to people that want it, but I don't know if how that works in this day and age. I mean, basically, once a technology exists to, like Uber, you're never going to go back to taxis, and I kind of feel that's what happened to music. So, like, why do you even sell music? It just doesn't make sense to me,
Yeah, from what I understand, Spotify is basically giving it away for free to the artists.
Or even like Amazon, whatever, you can, for $10 a month, you can have any song ever and play it whenever the fuck you want. I mean, that's a pretty good deal, right?
Yeah. But is it good for the artists?
Well, actually, you do. I mean, I get, some fairly significant money with like Soul Asylum, but that song was so big, but I think it, has 190 million Spotify listens, and, you get a few $1,000.
Yeah.
It's a good deal, but I mean, that's a lot of downloads, so it's not even pennies per listen,
Yeah.
But, I just kind of feel, I don't know. I mean, remember that whole thing when Metallica made such a big deal of that?
Yeah.
It kind of looked like, I don't know, it just seems like once the technology exists and there's a new paradigm, that's what it is. It's never going to go back,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like on one level it's a lot easier for people to be heard.
Yeah, but it's also like there's so much stuff out there. Like for me, if I were to like say, I haven't listened to underground music in 15 years. I used to love that, like Geraldine Fibbers and Rilo Kiley, whoever it was. I just love that shit. And like for me to like get a template, it'd be hard to find just because there's so much out there. I bet you there's just great stuff, but there used to not be as much material to wade through.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
definitely.
it's probably, I mean, people that really love music probably are really good at it. But if you're like sort of a casual fan, it can be a little bit unnerving to find new stuff that you like.
Yeah, kind of like walking into Sam Goody.
Yeah. Or like a Guitar Center or something. And like, how come all these Stratocasters are only $89?
Right.
They're not really Stratocasters,
Yeah.
Well, I certainly enjoyed this. Thank you for doing it, and thanks for taking the time and for caring about the music. I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah, and thank you, Dan, for doing this. This has been a lot of fun for me. So, yeah, that was pretty cool, wasn't it? A little long, yeah, but come on. I'm interviewing Danny Murphy from Soul Asylum and Golden Smog. Doesn't get any better than that, does it? Anyway, thanks for tuning in. I've got this awesome video project coming up that I'm going to be talking about really soon, so stay tuned and stay tuned. Thanks for listening.